Good morning, everyone. Thank you for continuing to be with us this morning. Our third presenter this morning is Tim from WoodWorks. WoodWorks has a rich history of working with communities in Northeastern Ontario, even though they're a national organization. So without further ado, Tim, take it away.
Thanks, Mac, and thanks FONOM for organizing this session and inviting us to be here today. Today we're going to talk about Canadian Wood Council, why we think that wood is the product of choice, and how we promote that through our WoodWorks program. I'm going to get into a few examples of projects that you can incorporate into your community. So why do we think that wood should be the building material of choice? We have this amazing natural product that is safe. Timber products have been vetted to meet or exceed the stringent requirements of the building code. We have really the only sustainable, fully renewable building material that's available to us to construct buildings out of. We'll get more into the carbon story in a couple of slides, but another very important factor to consider. We have a product that's readily available. It's not manufactured, it's a natural material that's just simply cut out of the logs, and it's reusable as well. Very strong, pound for pound, comparable to steel and concrete construction, and extremely durable, and very sophisticated material in its natural characteristics. We have a product that uses what we now refer to as biophilia, which essentially means that humans feel more comfortable surrounded by natural materials, such as exposed timber and other things that we see in nature. It just is how we're designed to live. We also have a lightweight material that's about 50 pounds per square foot, which, the concrete weighs in at about 150 and steel at 400. So logistically, it's much easier to move. You can have a smaller foundation size for your building, which makes for very flexible design parameters. It also provides oxygen to us through photosynthesis, which we'll touch on a bit later. And of course, you can't deny the design impact of these types of structures. I know, I can't help but look up when I enter a building like this, which is an office building in the Vancouver area. But we have many examples of these in our own communities in Northern Ontario as well. In addition, the newer kind of trend towards mass timber construction really addresses productivity and potential safety issues through prefabricated construction, meaning that most of the building materials are made in factories off-site where moisture and other hazards can be controlled. So we get very precise building materials that arrive on site very efficiently and are assembled in a kit of parts, so to speak. And I mention this because as a society, we maybe need to address the trends in construction that we've seen in the last 70 or so years since post-World War II. This particular graph has been making the rounds lately, which shows productivity increases in different industries since post-World War II. You can see at the bottom here that construction is really lacking behind. In fact, it peaked around the mid-1960s, 70s, and then has sort of tapered off since then. And that peak can be attributed to the advent and widespread use of power tools. But in recent years, it's not unusual to see a building under construction for 3, 4, or 5 years. But our timber structures actually go up very, very quickly, especially the timber itself can go up in a matter of weeks and not months. In addition, we're using a local material. I mean, I don't have to explain to this group that you can essentially drive for hours and hours and not go a foot without seeing a grove of trees nearby. And our forestry economy supports 155,000 direct and indirect jobs in Ontario alone. Throughout Canada, that number is much greater, especially in British Columbia. But the trees are grown here in Ontario. They can be manufactured into building products here in Ontario. So it's very much a industry that we can do our best to support as well. Really want to talk about sustainability when we're talking about wood construction. This graphic here really shows the cycle very well. So, we start with young trees that begin to grow, and they grow larger by absorbing carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, and releasing the oxygen back into the atmosphere. So as trees mature, just like any other organism, they retain that carbon, reaching their, essentially maturity state in 60 to 80 years. And at a certain point, the carbon storage of a tree will plateau, just like any other organism, that the tree has a maximum life cycle. And we have natural events such as forest fires, insect damage, wind that would damage the tree and cause that carbon to gradually be released back into the atmosphere over time. But if we harvest the timber and dry it to a certain moisture content, that carbon remains stored indefinitely. So we can use it as a structural material in buildings, which will store that carbon for the lifetime of the building. And then we can repeat the cycle. Ontario, especially in Canada, are leaders in sustainable forestry. And many countries who have been using these sustainable type of forestry methods actually increase their forest coverage the more that they increase their sawmill production. So we have an industry where essentially more trees are planted than are harvested. Forest industry here in Ontario is so fast, and it's so well managed by independent parties that we're not actually depleting the supply of trees by any means. We're actually increasing it and providing a very readily usable building material. So it's a fascinating cycle, and even producing the timber itself takes approximately 5 times less energy than producing concrete and 24 times less energy than producing steel. And as far as sustainability goes in the actual allocation of materials, there's only so much sand that we can use to make concrete. It's a certain kind of sand that needs to be used. You can't just use desert sand. It has to have a certain type of moisture content to it, as well as there's only so much iron ore to produce steel. But we can continue to regenerate our forests indefinitely, which is a great thing to see. Specifically, I work for Canadian Wood Council, which is Canada's voice for the wood products industry. We represent the wood products industries for National Federation of Associations. And the mission of the program is to expand market access and increase demand for Canadian wood products through excellence in codes, standards, regulations, and education. If there's any designers attending today, you're probably very familiar with the wood design manuals and other publications and technical resources produced by the CWC. And our WoodWorks program was founded over 20 years now to develop the market, so to speak. So it is a national program, and you can see our office is highlighted from coast to coast here, and operating at Steak-au-Bois in Quebec with our head office in Ottawa. But as Mac mentioned, we have regional programs. So the Ontario team is myself, Marianne, and Shervin Rehani. And we cover really the whole province of Ontario to assist with wood products. I've been with the program about 15 years. I've had a lot of awesome educations through that time to help assist with wood products. And I was lucky enough to travel to the world's tallest timber building, which, believe it or not, is 24 stories and 86 meters in height, with a 70% timber structure. So we can build a lot bigger and a lot more complex buildings, and you might see in your experience being built out of wood. We help out through our project support with one-on-one meetings, inquiries, site visits and tours, providing resources. Our tech call and help desk lines are here to answer your engineering questions and get you in touch with the right people to make sure that your timber project is successful. And we also try to educate and inspire through customized talks like this. We work with colleges, universities, architecture and design teams, municipalities, a whole range of developers and companies in an attempt to really increase the use of timber in buildings throughout Canada. As mentioned, we have a variety of publications, case studies for specific building typologies, reference guides to the building code as to when and how you can use timber, and even design guides for specific building typologies, which allows us to help designers really, have a good place to start when it comes to buildings. So let's talk about a little bit how we can use wood in our community projects. There's a lot less barriers than maybe you think. Here's a nice highlight project here in North Bay, Ontario, where I live. Our health unit has a beautiful HM space in timber, and we'll touch on a few other local projects and maybe some inspirational ones that can help you think about incorporating these types of projects in your communities. First thing to talk about when we talk about building is talk about the building code, of course. That's what, I'm kind of shocked to see people say, well, you can't build that out of wood, but you can actually build a lot more than we may think. This is just kind of a quick overview of the type of typologies that we'll probably see most often in communities. Your Group A, Division 2 and 3 types of buildings. So we have things, from art galleries to courtrooms to gymnasiums, libraries, museums, arenas, swimming pools, rinks, etc. And in the Group D area, which is more of the office type typologies, such as your community offices, medical offices, police stations, fire stations, etc., all fit in these categories. And this is a kind of overview of, in those particular divisions, how large of a building that you can build. So you can see that the code as it stands now allows us to build relatively large buildings out of timber using these considerations. And we can also even go larger than that if we want to, by going through what's called an alternative solution process. So you work together with your design team to essentially prove that your building meets the performance standards of the code. So we see a lot of much larger buildings built in timber throughout the world that have just proven that it's as safe as any other building material, which of course it is. And another kind of interesting area of the building code allows us to have heavy timber roofs on many types of buildings. So for buildings up to 2 stories, really regardless of the building area or construction type required, as long as that building is sprinklered throughout, you can have a beautiful mass timber roof incorporated into it. So we'll go through a few quick case studies. Just a quick shot of the Kenora Airport Terminal, using some heavy timber in the roof structure for a very evocative type of view to take in. But we'll look a little bit more specifically at a few buildings. So we have the Temagami First Nation multi-use facility up in Northern Ontario and Temagami. This building structure is nearly 100% conventional timber construction, traditional lightwood stud framing, incorporating some engineered products such as I-joists, where the building required some increased strength. Speaking at length with the design team, wood was the clear material of choice, especially given the challenging site of the Bear Island First Nation area. They actually had to bring in approximately 1,400 barge shipments during the months where the site was not accessible by ice road. So the lightweight nature of wood frame construction that I alluded to earlier was a significant factor in reducing the actual number of shipments to the site, which would have been much more with the heavier materials. So even after the framing, wood elements were used for aesthetics in the main spaces. Local trades were engaged to help make this a real community showcase and sense of pride, and was actually an award winner in our 2019 award program. The next building I want to touch on is a municipal office in French River, in Noellville area. This is an 18,350 square foot building. which is actually one of the very first site visits I did in this position way back in 2008. And the design of this office complex, which obviously new at the time, was really to bring in the unique personality and history of the French River area because of the region's strong connection with the forestry industry, which is very true in the north. I think it's hard to find somebody who doesn't have a connection to the forestry industry. The natural characteristics of wood were used as a design element in the architecture. The entrance is reminiscent of a wave design to symbolize the flow of the French River. This was designed by Sudbury firm Yalloway Boulanger Salatch Architecture, and held as essential services in the community, such as the municipal office, council chambers, medical clinic, and emergency services staff space, and a large garage for ambulances and fire trucks. Completely built out of wood, large glue laminated wood structure over the main entrance, lobby, and council chambers. And this main central spine, which is the focus piece of the building, is intended to represent the structure of a canoe. So this also serves other groups in the community and the largest office building in the French River area. The construction of the office began in spring of 2008 and was completed by winter of 2009. So can really use this very, very well in the office typologies. Now moving on to some of the larger community center projects that we see. The Anya Community Center and Library in Markham, Ontario, which is a 122,000 square foot building. This new community center was badly needed in the fast growing Markham area. It has a triple gymnasia, aquatic center, fitness center, multi-use rooms, and a branch library, as well as a host of other ancillary services. The showcase, of course, is the massive heavy timber glue laminated roof structure, which is common throughout the entire building. Speaks again to wood as a natural material, comprised of glulam primary beams and purlins with SPF decking. Another interesting element of timber is its use in pool environments, which people think is kind of a no-go due to the nature of wood, but at roof level, relative humidities are well below 80%, which is kind of the threshold for timber to take on more moisture than its existing contents. So at 75% humidity, which is kind of common for pool areas, the moisture content will remain at about 15%, which is totally fine for timber. So it's an excellent building material for pool roofs. Wood plays an important role in achieving this particular project's target for LEED Gold, and of course broader sustainability objectives. As we mentioned, offsetting those CO2 emissions is very important to this particular project, and really to, can be to all projects moving forward. I can't really speak to a group of Ontario attendees without really bringing the arena into play. Of course, we all know what it's like to sit in the prototypical cold arena, which from the outside this particular building kind of represents, but this 54,000 square foot building, once you step inside, it's much different than what we're used to seeing. The rec center features an NHL-sized hockey rink, gymnasium, basketball courts, workout equipment, community space, and spectator seating. Serves as a much needed community hub, especially during the cold and dark winter months, while also providing opportunity for new revenue generated through sport tourism. Obviously, these types of structures look quite striking on televised events, so they become a drawing piece for the community as well. And believe it or not, although it looks complex, this is a relatively simple structure in terms of wood construction. Makes use of both regular wood framings throughout for the interior finishes and this particular glue laminated timber building was cost comparable with the steel option. Very appealing, obviously, in their aesthetic values. And just to kind of wrap up the examples, go maybe a little bit simpler but closer to home is, our own Bill Barber complex in Callander, Ontario, just outside of North Bay, designed by a local architecture firm, Bertrand Wheeler. You can see this very kind of similar idea, but just as an outdoor surface. Having a covered rink like this allows for lower maintenance and can become a venue for concerts, weddings, and other events in the summer months, in addition to allowing us to utilize it better in the winter months as well, to have a really excellent kind of showcase type of roof. So really you can incorporate timber, wherever your kind of imagination can bring you. The WoodWorks program is here to help with that. If you're looking to bring wood into your community projects, we're happy to help. We have case studies on, pretty much every typology that you could think of, including fire stations, multi-story buildings, etc. And of course, we're supported by the forestry industry throughout Canada and locally with the WoodWorks program, supported by a number of Ontario local companies, supported by FEDNOR, of course, which I always want to mention when we're speaking to the Northern Ontario crowd. But I think I was able to allow for some time for questions as well. And I'll just pop my contact info if anyone wants to get in touch. We love talking about this stuff, and we want to incorporate as much wood into the built environment as we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. We've got several people would like to see the slides, because they just not only because of the beautiful pictures, but of the content that you have, the wide range of content in those slides and suggestions for our communities. Do have a couple of questions. One is comes from City of North Bay again. They're wondering about nursing homes. Are there examples, or would a long-term care home fit into one of the categories that would be eligible for building with wood?
Yeah, so definitely, great question. And we've been kind of actively pursuing with, the Ontario government's recent announcements regarding expanded long-term care facilities throughout the province, with many communities getting new beds. So you can certainly construct a number of long-term care facilities to a certain size using timber construction. Usually in the 2-story to 3-story range is what's allowed. We have seen examples of multi-story buildings in care facility in the 4, 5, and 6-story range being allowed, but the prescriptive code, just because of the increased time for evacuation, doesn't usually allow. I'd have to double check the building code to get precise sizes on that, but in the 5 and 6-story range, long-term care facilities usually are required to be non-combustible. But the smaller types of buildings can certainly be constructed in wood frame. I know a number of senior facilities in recent years up in Timiskaming Shores area come to mind, and as well as Southern Ontario have been built in wood frame, but we can certainly source examples of that. I can think of a few architects as well who are very familiar with wood construction in long-term care facilities as well.
Thank you very much. The next question is, with the new, and it comes from President Danny Whalen, with the new bonding processes and laminated timbers, bridge kits of various build sizes would be of interest to municipalities. Has WoodWorks researched this, or one of your partners researched this possibility?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. Couple years back, FEDNOR sourced WoodWorks to look into this exact area, which we did at length, and produced a very in-depth bridge engineering guide for wood deck bridges. which Danny, we can certainly provide to you and anyone else who's interested. Some successful examples of that are in the Petawawa Research Forest. There's a heavy timber bridge that was constructed, and of course, the new Duchesne Creek bridge going up as we speak nearby in Nipissing First Nation is using a glue laminated structure to support the deck as well. So we have been working on this pretty diligently. And yeah, we'd love to talk to municipalities who are interested in that. We can connect you with suppliers who specialize in that area as well, and a very efficient and quick way to bring bridges, especially small bridges, into communities as well.
Thank you, Tim. The next question comes, businesses in Northern Ontario and communities in Northern Ontario have a rich history of being environmentally conscious. They're wondering about whether WoodWorks or one of your partners is working to with the provincial government of Ontario about offsets of carbon credits to reduce one corporation or municipality's greenhouse output.
Great question. At this time, we're working very closely with the provincial government, especially for incentives regarding timber construction. Nothing that I could really speak of regarding the carbon offset credits or anything of that nature. I can tell you that representatives that we speak to on a regular basis with the provincial government are committed to sustainability, in various forms. Something I'd have to research further as far as offering up credits or things of that nature. I know that the provincial government did support a variety of wood projects a couple of years ago through demonstration funding to kind of, maybe bridge some of the costing gaps when we were learning some new codes a few years back. And, potentially there could be other programs like that being offered as well. But you can always reach out to WoodWorks too to speak about these types of opportunities for financial savings or incentives regarding sustainable construction in the community as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, Tim, thank you very much. Found your presentation fascinating, and like seeing the pictures of those in North Bay and Callander, and thanks for including some pictures of constructions that have been done in the Nipissing district. I know your presentation is going to spur a lot of interest in lots of our communities, and I've had a couple of requests for the slides, so I'll be those individuals that email FONOM. I'll pass them and connect them with Tim so that you can share and start a conversation about communities and projects that might be popping up across Northeastern Ontario. Tim, thanks very much again for your presentation today. So our next presenters are going to be in about 5 minutes, so we'll take a 5-minute health break.